Hi, welcome to today's training on how to prepare for an in-person interview, presented by MoveUp. The goal of today's lesson is to prepare for an in-person interview for a job opportunity that you are pursuing. You will learn 3 things: how to prep for the pre-interview part of your interview, common interview questions, and resources that we provide you that you can review at the end. MoveUp is a nonprofit that empowers underserved minority women by helping them find jobs, succeed in careers, and start small businesses. Our goal is to help make every underserved minority woman in the Bay Area become financially independent. To learn more, please visit www.moveuptoday.org. Let's begin. So an interview is not the only thing that matters. There are many other parts of the interview that you have to take into account when prepping for an in-person interview. And I listed some of the most important ones here. The handshake, confidence, energy, connection with interviewers, looking professional. So confidence is very important. You have to make sure to feel very comfortable when you're talking about what's important to you. So to do this and make sure you're confident when you're walking into an interview, you should be very prepared, talk loudly, more than you would casually talk to somebody so you sound more confident. Talk slowly. A lot of people get very nervous and talk very fast. And another idea that some people do is they raise their seat as soon as they sit down so they don't feel like they are below the person they're talking to. And the last thing is to make sure to smile and have deep eye contact when speaking and answering questions. The handshake. So many women don't give a proper handshake. Make sure to give a handshake very, very firmly when you meet somebody. So the first thing to do is to smile and make eye contact. Then when you reach for the handshake, don't let it be loose, not bone crushing, but firm and strong. So right in between, but something that shows confidence and shows your calmness. So common mistakes that people make in interviews. Tardiness. Make sure you arrive at least 15 minutes early before your interview and give a buffer of any sort of worst case scenario that could happen. You get stuck in traffic, flat tire, ticket. You don't want to be speeding because you got a police ticket and then get caught. It would be the worst case scenario. So you want to make sure that you give enough buffer so you're not feeling rushed. A lot of people will have a really late night. They're staying up late to prep for the interview, and then they show no energy when they're actually in the interview. So that defeats the purpose. Make sure you get a good night's rest. A lot of people don't research the company or the product, so they seem unprepared when they walk in. And it doesn't seem like they actually really care about that person that's working there, that job they're applying for, or the company they're applying for. Speaking poorly about your current company. So a lot of times the question is asked, why are you leaving? And a lot of people put down their current company, but that doesn't reflect well on the person who's interviewing. So make sure you always talk highly and positively about anything and everything you're describing. Don't put down anything. Being too modest and selling yourself too short. Make sure this is the time that you highlight all your great experiences and all the great successes you've had. It's an interview and they want to see that, so you don't have to be too modest. Forgetting to send a follow-up and thank you. It's very important to do that, and we'll talk more about that after. So there are 2 types of ways of preparing for an interview. There's qualitative and specific to the job. Qualitative are things like situational questions such as tell me about a time when you made a mistake, what's your biggest failure, what are some strengths, what are some weaknesses, more situational questions. And then there's specific to the job questions. So this is regarding questions that are specific to the company you're applying to. So industry specific, competitors, product knowledge, coding questions, or case study questions. And you prepare for them differently. So typical qualitative questions are listed here, and we will be going through those today and giving you some good and bad examples. So one of the main questions people ask are, what are your career goals? And a bad example would be, I want to make an impact. I want to grow and lead the company. While that seems very vague, anybody and everybody can say that, but you want to say something more specific and more specific to what you really want to do and show your passion. So a good response would be having structure to what you're saying, giving like a 1, 2, and 3, having a clear goal in mind, even if that's not exactly what you think you'll end up doing, having something clearly formulated is very important because it shows that you're able to articulate and have some mindset and some goal-oriented personality. So 2 goals related to your role and then an industry is a good way of starting. And a move up pro tip is that this is a really important question, and people when they interview are trying to judge you and see how you react in certain situations to see if you're very goal oriented. So make sure you prepare ahead of time by writing out your answers. What are your greatest weaknesses? So the bad answer to that is admitting to, I'm a very stressed out person, I don't work really well under pressure, I get really nervous easily, I don't really like working in teams. Even if those are your weaknesses, you don't want to highlight those because in the end, everybody has weaknesses, which is completely okay. You want to highlight more weaknesses that you're able to show that everyone can learn from and grow from. Another bad one is saying, I don't have any weaknesses. Everybody has weaknesses. We're humans. And so admitting to them is okay, but it's more about how you handle them and how you learn from them. So a good one is, don't feel the need to tell your biggest weakness, like I said. So a good response is turning a negative into a positive. So saying something like, sometimes I'm very detail-oriented, and so I get too caught up in my project, and I need to remind myself that I have a lot of work to do, so I have to step back and make sure I spend enough time in my day doing all my different projects I'm working on instead of one specific project. Tell me about a time you failed. So a bad response would be, I had a disastrous project where I didn't meet the deadline and I messed up and it kind of the company was ruined, or there was no, it made a huge impact on the company's bottom line or something like that. You want to make sure you have an example that you've prepped for ahead of time where you show what you've learned. So anytime you're trying to do this question, a good acronym to remember is the STAR method. So anytime there's a tell me, use the STAR method. And this includes situation, there's a task, here your action was to do this, the result was this. So speak about how your situation went poorly and exactly what you did to fix it. And that's what they're really wanting to find out from the question, that tell me about a time you failed. So tips for qualitative and specific to job resources. So for qualitative questions, it's good to do a lot of research ahead of time. There's so many resources out there. So going on Google, Forbes Top 50 Questions, those are great places to find some practice questions. It's also really great to practice what you're going to say because it might sound great in your head, but once you start talking about it, it may sound very different than what you expect. So make sure you practice with a friend. And if you don't have a peer you can practice with, just grab your phone and record on there and then listen to yourself saying your answer. And then you can practice and learn what you thought you said and then what you actually sounded like. So specific to the job resources, so there are some things out there like Cracking the Code, Interviewer Street, Top Coder. Glassdoor.com is a great place to look at questions that are asked at the specific company you're applying to and maybe some specific role questions. And then checking LinkedIn for people who are in similar positions and reaching out to them and saying, what are some typical interview questions? It's another great way of learning about how to prep. So thank you for watching. To find other training videos and to learn how MoveUp can help you, please visit www.moveuptoday.org.